right, everybody. The boys are back. It's midway through the season, or ish. 6-4 the Texans are. Cody, Stoots, DJ Bien-Aime, Will Kunkel, Kickin It With Kunkel. If you haven't already, like, click, subscribe, share, everything. Okay, let's just dive into this. What the F is going on? Well, never in a million years did I think the offense was going to be the issue or the completely healthy before Kenyon Green went down offensive line was going to be this bad. I told you in the offseason I was concerned about the offensive line. I'd be lying if I thought it would be this bad or that Bobby Slowick couldn't make any adjustments at halftime and that the offense was a disaster. Who wants to go first?
Yeah, where do we start? I mean, if we're going to autopsy these 10 games, we got plenty to start with.
Yeah,
I'm going to go with the offensive line because this is the offensive line that they've wanted for the better part of close to 2 years. When they left the 2023 NFL draft, this is the O-line they wanted.
Right.
And the time that it was on the field together, it stunk.
Yeah.
It stunk. It wasn't good enough. It wasn't anywhere near good enough.
It was detrimental to the team. It was bad then stunk.
And they've had some really unfortunate things happen. Shaq Mason's taken a step back, and guys like him with his resume just never really take drastic step backs like that, but that's happened. Kenyon Green hasn't been good enough. Juice Scruggs wasn't good enough. Had some inconsistency from Titus Howard. Laramie's still Laramie, but sometimes he's got to try to make up for what other guys are doing, so even he gets put in precarious positions. But this is the O-line they wanted.
Right.
And it's bad. And bad might be being generous.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it starts on the interior. That's where it starts. It's funny, like, they lost Kenyon Green. The pass blocking got a little bit better, but now the run blocking is completely non-existent.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, as you said, this is the unit that they wanted. This is who they invested in. And through 2 years, it's either been often injured or just hasn't been good enough in terms of pass blocking and run blocking. And now that Kenyon Green's out for basically the entire year, Sunday didn't give me confidence that it's going to get better because their pass blocking was a little bit better, but CJ still got sacked 4 times. One of them he could have probably thrown away, but they couldn't run the ball at all.
No.
And if they can't run the ball, like, this offense is completely dead in the water.
Yep.
So with that being said now, the offensive line, I don't know how you fix it.
You can't.
I'm about to say, can you?
No.
Nah.
Because I asked the offensive line coach when we had him, I said, is this the thing, like, you don't know how to coach them or they don't know how to do what you're coaching them? And he straight up said, they have the ability to do it. We got to figure out how to coach them. That says to me, like, I've got a kid that just can't learn, and I don't know how to teach him. Like, what do you do? Is this what this team is now? Like, is this where we are? Because they're not a bad football team. The defense is damn near elite. They're 6-4. Right. No matter how you get there and how it feels, 6-4 is what they were at this point last year. Mm-hmm. They do have a legit chance to be 9-4.
Yeah,
by the bye week, which is crazy that we have this kickoff to this conversation so negatively about a team that could be 9-4. But I think we all know, like, football a little bit better than thinking, like, this is good.
Well, the scary part is you're on your typical Texans trajectory, which is you win a really bad division. You play the very first game on Saturday afternoon in the wild card round. You probably beat that team, and then you go face one of the AFC elites, and they show you what an AFC elite looks like. That's the typical Texans trajectory, and that's where this team has found itself. It was supposed to be a team that could overshoot this, go where this organization's never gone before. AFC championship game. My goodness, maybe New Orleans, but that's all gone now because of some of the issues that we have seen. And it's not like it's one issue or so. Like, Dan Campbell's not really worried that Jared Goff had a bad game because that's a bad game.
It's an outlier.
We have seen constants from this offense that give you lots of pause about where this team can go.
Yeah, I mean, you said the trajectory of winning the AFC South and in a playoff game. Right now, they're not equipped to win a playoff game.
Probably not.
In my honest opinion, because right now it's either going to be the Steelers or the Ravens.
And that would not be good.
And that would not be good. So, again, right now, until they...
Good luck blocking TJ Watt.
I know. I mean, for me, it's really going to be, can they find a way to mitigate the interior offensive line issues from a run and pass blocking standpoint to be able to get to that step where they can get to the divisional round, in my opinion. And until they fix that, the season is kind of, you're just kind of waiting for the end of it.
These are the 3 opponents here before the bye week, though, with the Dallas Cowboys, the Tennessee Titans at home, and the Jacksonville Jaguars. These are the 3 opponents that, if it doesn't look better with these 5 offensive linemen on Monday, if it doesn't look better then, Swap it up again. Change it up again until you can figure something
But who are you
else
going to
out.
go to, though?
I mean, go to Kendrick Green.
We
at
saw him
left
against
guard.
the Jets. It wasn't much better either.
At least they could run a little bit with him back there. You got to be
That's
able
fair.
to run the football. You can maybe figure out some of this passing stuff because Nico Collins will be back. But they can't go into a game where they can't run the football because the 5 guys up front can't get it going.
Yeah, I think it's just, Bobby's had some issues. I also think that no Nico, obviously, like that's a big factor. Like this year, CJ Stroud, I think, has a QBR of like 41 versus like 72 with Nico on the field versus off the field. But teams now that there's no Diggs, teams are gonna be able to like game plan to like obviously Nico's still gonna get his, but they'll be able to like bracket him at certain points and make everybody else beat them. And right now, the other guys have shown so far they struggle beating press coverage because Detroit.
You don't have enough time for your receiver to get out of press coverage to get open and then get to another read.
Against the Lions, they had enough time. They just weren't getting open.
Yeah, I agree in the first half.
And the second half. The second half, they weren't getting open. Like, they were just playing bump and run, and guys weren't getting open.
Okay, hold on. Go.
That's where I'm frustrated that they were content with this wide receiver room, even with Nico coming back.
They're missing Noah Brown.
Yeah.
They could use
But
Noah
is that
Brown
really
badly.
the issue? Like, really, you think so?
I think it's the Lions.
So if
I
this
absolutely think
offensive
it's the
line
Lions.
did what they did last year, you don't think like we're okay?
Probably not.
I think just a little bit better
Yeah.
from a pass catching standpoint, and you could maybe, I think mitigate's the perfect word, DJ. You could mitigate a little bit of these issues.
Because another thing too, Chris Sim alluded to it, but he missed some parts of it. Cause they say they slide away from Laramie. No, they don't slide away from Laramie. The issue is teams now know the Texans slide protections. They know how Bobby wants to call plays. They know where Bobby wants to get the football to. Middle of the field, that's where he loves to get the ball to. And the way they slide protect, Kenyon Green, Drew Scruggs are liabilities when it comes to picking up stuff. In terms of just purely blocking, guys, obviously Kenyon Green, he couldn't block Quentin Williams, but who can? In terms of just picking up and communication, things of that nature, they completely struggle there. And teams were able to consistently attack that over and over and over. Even when they know when it's coming, they still struggle to consistently pick it up. Last year, they didn't have that issue because teams didn't necessarily know how to attack Bobby. It was his first year ever calling plays. This year, they have a good idea on how to attack. Because we saw from week 1, the Colts came out to jump with it, and they were able to get 4 sacks. And then, obviously, the Bears were able to get multiple sacks. So, for me, now that teams have been able to figure out that issue, even if you had last year's O-line, it still probably would have been a little bit of an issue. And I think that, especially last week, it wasn't that much of an issue. They had some plays where they picked it up. Now your receivers don't get open as quickly and as fast as you would need to, which explains to me now why they went and got Diggs. They saw something on film that said, we have to add to the room. Because they tried to get Keenan. They couldn't get Keenan. Then they went and got Diggs. That means they told us, everybody behind Nico, they're okay, but we need more. Because right now, the way it's looking, like without Nico, the receiver room is just, and obviously without Diggs, it's just.
And then they sat there with no Nico for a while, and then once they knew there was no Diggs, then they didn't add anything. And then and I know there wasn't a lot out there, but something.
Yeah, but who could they have added that would have fixed the problem on?
Well, I don't know that there's one
Sunday.
fix a
It's gonna take
problem
them a
guy.
week or two to figure it out.
But I do feel more comfortable if Nico had just a little bit. If it wasn't just Nico coming back, it was Nico and another veteran. Because I think having played a lot of football, Noah Brown having played a lot of football as kind of the example that we've talked about, having a veteran in there who's been around, seen a lot of stuff, been able to adjust to coverages, how teams play guys in games. Like Xavier Hutchinson in his second year, he played less than 20 games in the NFL. Same with John Mechie. Like there's not a lot of experience to this wide receiver room. That's why I would have liked an old guy, even if that old guy's not super productive.
They do. They got Robert Woods. Just that he's
I would have liked the old guy a little bit more juice.
Yeah,
to
yeah.
him.
Like they the biggest mistake for them was probably picking Robert Woods over Noah Brown because of availability, which is fair. That's a fair reason, but Noah Brown has way more juice. At least we've seen multiple games where he's had big games. Like there's 3 games you can pinpoint that his contributions help lead you to wins. Bucks, Bengals, and Titans on the road with Case Keenum at quarterback. Right? You have 3 specific games, so I
But I just pulled up his stats this year. He's not exactly killing it out.
Yeah, but he helped
way
win
better
a
than
game.
Xavier
25
Hutchinson.
catches, 351 yards.
So,
But he's on pace. He's on pace for
Yeah.
probably like 700 yards in Washington. He just got there.
Going into last week, so before they had anything happen last week, he'd run 3 more routes than Xavier Hutchinson, and he'd quadrupled the production.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, I mean, he's like, look, and we're sitting here. It's Noah Brown. You could have adjusted. You could have changed things.
We kind of had this talk before the season. Like, if this is what we were arguing about, it was either really good or really bad.
Well, here we are.
Right. And it's really bad.
Right.
I want to get to the crux of all this.
Okay.
Because they're a good first half football team.
Right.
What the hell happens at halftime? They are the bottom 3 scoring points in the second half. Shutout against the Lions. 15 total points the last month. Haven't scored a second half touchdown since the New England Patriots game, week 6. How the hell does that happen? Who do you blame?
Well, they struggle to run the ball in second halves too. So that's a big issue. The last 2 games, they haven't had much sledding in terms of running the ball. That's one big issue. Again, like in the first half, you can scheme things up. Second half, you kind of need your players to make plays. I also think, each week is something different, right? The Jets game, they couldn't run the ball as well, and pass protection was just dreadful.
Forget about it.
Right. Because guys were getting open. I did notice that in that game, guys were getting open against the Lions.
That's when, like, to your point, CJ got happy feet and missed that Mechie throw,
Right,
right?
right.
A touchdown. Like,
right.
It's a domino effect.
The
too.
Lions game, they couldn't run the ball, and guys weren't getting open, right? And then obviously CJ started it poorly by throwing an interception and then throwing one in the end zone. And at that point, I don't want to say his confidence got shaken because I'm not in his body. I can't say that. But you can tell Bobby was like, okay, first and second, I'm run the ball. And we'll figure out on third down. And that's what they did. And they couldn't get any rhythm in the second halves. And I think the biggest issue, because they want to run the ball, they can't run the ball effectively in second halves. And if you can't do that, it's hard for them, especially with their skilled players at this point, to consistently rely on a passing game.
What really bothers me is, like, I don't love the talent wide receiver without Nico here. I don't love it, but I still see teams across the league where it looks easy to get a guy open. Get the ball in his
They're
hands.
still all NFL wide receivers.
For sure.
That guy could put his foot in the ground, get over the middle, and they can at least get 5-6 yards every now and then.
Sure.
Like, it just looks so difficult sometimes for this Texans team, and I think that's what is probably really annoying. Is you could and the primetime games have been the best example of it, because you had Thursday, then you watched all day Sunday. You're like, wow, that guy's not very good, but he gets open, or like they scheme him open, or he gets the ball in space, and there's not somebody there immediately, and you get it again. You can watch all day, and then you go watch the Texans in the first half. You're like, all right, got a little juice to it, okay, and then nobody's getting open. You're like, okay, why can't you just figure out how to get a few yards, just something, gimmick it together?
Who needs to be held responsible? We thought there'd be an offensive line coaching change after the Jets game. That didn't happen. And I'm not calling for anyone's job. I don't know personally. But, like, at some point, you got to shake the hell out of somebody.
But what is all you're going to do is elevate, his backup, which is assistant, which
but
he's in the room too.
But what was your point when you were like, I can't fire all y'all.
Yeah,
but a good man's out of a job today because you can't do your job.
I mean, look, embarrassment maybe doesn't get them to play better, because if you haven't been embarrassed with the results, getting your coach fired is not going to make you embarrassed either.
But you can't do the same crap consistently either.
So they've tried different stuff. Like early on they were trying to run a lot of outside zone, and that was having issues. So they started running more inside zone, more power, more wham runs, these things of that nature, and then Joe was having more success. So they've tried different stuff. It's just that, once teams adjust, it's hard for them to run outside zone because Dalton Schultz hasn't had as good a year, especially as a blocker. Things of that nature. Obviously, the guys have gotten hurt. So your receivers, because blocking at the receiver spot is so vital in this offense, which is why you see a lot more Xavier Hutchinson on run plays than you see Tank Dell, specifically because, again, or, at least getting in the mix because Xavier's a better blocker, but Xavier's only in year 2, so he's not a great blocker. It's like their personnel just doesn't match the system, which obviously is unfortunate.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, trying stuff, they tried this, this bootleg against the Jets, and they bootlegged right into pressure because, the guy beat Titus. So it's like, I know a lot of Texans fans, you think about, okay, it's a Shanahan offense.
Yeah.
And that's what Gary Kubiak was running back in the day. And like, I have vivid memories of Matt Schaub in these big bootlegs where there's no one around him. And Schaub couldn't have run for the first down to save his life, but he could just sit there and wait, and he could find somebody that would eventually get open. And look, obviously he had Andre, and CJ hasn't had Nico for the past few weeks, so he had his number one for a lot of that. But there was still the Kevin Walters, the Owen Daniels, like getting the ball to the other guys that they could do. And like, that's part of like like this is supposed to be, I don't want to say player proof. Nothing's player proof. Guys got to make plays, but this is supposed to be a system that can help a lessened talent situation like what the Texans have been in. And it's actually just magnified how untalented they are.
Yeah. I would also say that teams have a better beat on how to defend this scheme. And again, like Bobby last year, first year calling plays, this year they have a better idea. Because again, like a lot of teams, they're facing a lot of too high. Obviously, the Lions, they went way more single, and they said, we don't respect your guys. They're not going to beat us. And unfortunately, that's exactly what happened. Mm-hmm. But, you know.
But then when they do, like Tank, CJ blows it.
Right. I mean, you know, unfortunate situation, you know what I mean? So I think another thing, too, is like their interior pressure, blocking, that's been an issue. So when teams go too high, you need time to get into the windows, and they don't have the time to get there because you got someone coming up right in CJ's face. You know what I'm saying? So like, and you could tell like now he's kind of looking more at the rush at times and is moving a little bit faster than he needs to, moving out of the pocket quicker than he usually does. Cause I was watching like a tweet, a highlight from someone that tweeted something last year in November, and like looking at a lot of CJ's throws from his rookie year, and he had a lot of clean pockets and things of that nature.
That's what I mean. This is the same damn offensive line.
Yeah, well, the difference was, last year Ty was playing some left guard. You had George Fant.
Then hell.
Where's
George these days?
He's in Seattle.
Not playing much. He's been hurt.
Go pick his ass up. Damn.
For sure.
Where's Charlie Heck?
Yeah, well,
heck no on that one.
So yeah, I mean, there are some scheme issues. Obviously, there's some personnel issues. They got to figure out the best way to figure out. But I think when Nico comes back, it'll mitigate a lot of these issues because he can get open fast.
I don't know that it will.
I
just don't know if that's the issue.
It's like a solve everything.
It will help. But again, if he doesn't have time, then forget about it. Okay, turn the page. If you are to fix something, because the season, like we're only 10 games in. It's not like we're week 17 out of the playoffs. Like there's a lot of football to be played here. What do you do to fix it? Like what can you do?
My thing would be the Cowboys game is sort of another job interview for these offensive linemen. And if Juice Scruggs looks as bad against the Cowboys as he did against the Detroit Lions, try something else. Plop another guy in there and see if you can figure it out. And then they have to have a really difficult conversation about Shaq Mason. I mean, I know he's a veteran. I know he's got an incredible resume. But they have to have a really difficult conversation about him because he's playing the worst football of his career. And Shaq did not have a really good first year in the league either. Like he had a huge improvement year 1 to year 2. And to say that he's playing the worst football of his career now, like that's a really bad right guard for you. So you got to have a really difficult conversation about him. I know he's a veteran. I know he's paid. I know he's well respected, but he's not getting the job done. Patterson's fine at center. But the guys next to him, you got to figure out who those two guys are, and you gotta do something if it doesn't look better against Dallas.
But bench Shaq for who?
It's a great question, DJ.
That's what I'm
I
saying.
know it's like I want to get rid of this coach. Yeah. It's like, all right, fine. For who you want to hire? I want to get rid of this quarterback. Who do you want? Like,
Right. So I mean, the backups, it is like this is kind of what they're stuck with. I would say Nick and D'Amico probably spent too much at a position that they didn't necessarily need to spend at, and should have probably got some more interior off. Because last year, Nick was trying to add as much O-line depth as possible, right? I remember every time somebody asked me, what should the Texans add at the end of training camp, I always said, just keep adding O-linemen. And they kind of rolled with this, and, they're kind of reaping the
late round picks for Josh Jones and Kendrick Green.
Right.
Michael Dieter was on the roster as
they brought in George Fant at the beginning. They were. They
brought in Fant before Titus Howard even got hurt.
Before he even got hurt, yeah. So they were being ultra aggressive in that aspect. This year they one way to fix it is Bobby has to, in the second halves, I don't want to say he hasn't changed too much in that aspect, but I would say if the run's not working, don't keep banging your head thinking that eventually going to pop. Go to some more quick game, move the pocket a little bit, move the launch point a little bit. Scheme up Tank, open on some passes to get him in space, so he can get you an explosive. Teams know you want to try to go over the middle of the field on third downs. Well, try to run some plays that counter that. Do some more self-scout in that aspect. Because what they gotta do is get themselves in third and shorts. Because once you go in third and short, like 3rd and 4, 3rd and 5, 3rd and 3, 3rd and 2, teams can't jump off and fire off the ball the way they want to, and teams can't run those stunts in those games the way that they want to because it's not going to be enough time to get it to where you need to get it to. So, to get to CJ, that is. So, I would say just change up your play calling to an extent, change up the rhythm, don't bang your head, and try to beat the counter. You know what I'm saying? No, what was working. Obviously, the run game was working. Sometimes the run game is working, but sometimes switch it up and go more quick. And some guys have told me, like, man, we should go more quick game, move the pocket a little bit, especially in the second halves, just so we can kind of keep things, because teams obviously, because that's why I kind of get annoyed when D'Amico, when they kind of dismiss the adjustment conversation. No, teams are obviously yes, they're just throughout the game, but they're making bigger adjustments at halftime, and it's working against you guys. Mm-hmm. So you guys got to do something.
I think about how good they are in the first half situations where they've had a lot of success.
Yeah.
And this most recent game was an excellent drive to get 7 points when most of us would have been happy with 3.
Right.
It almost feels like when the whole board's available to Bobby, he just kind of has like option overload. And so I wonder if there's, hey, let's pare this down. Let's, we don't have, maybe we go from the Cheesecake Factory menu, we go to the In-N-Out menu. There's a whole lot less options.
Sure.
We're gonna make sure we get the ball to this guy in this situation. We're gonna make sure we get the ball to this guy in this situation, and just kind of like paralyzation by option is almost what it falls into in the second half. It's like they just can't get anything going because the other teams sort of started to figure some things out, and Slowick's trying this and going, ill-timed sideways stuff, and it's like maybe just what was working, let's do that a whole lot more.
To kind of put a bow on a lot of it, I don't know at what point, but there was a point during the season, like just a handful of weeks ago, I was like, it'll click, it'll come together, I think. Like, they get Nico back, and they still had Steph at this point, I think. I'm to the point where this is who they are. Mm. And I don't know what this necessarily is because it's still a little bit of up and down and inconsistent. But I don't, like, to your point, playoffs only because they're in the AFC South. Maybe a playoff win, and that's it. It's a wrap. Like, that's like when someone tells you who they are, believe them.
Right.
That's what they're doing.
It has been a very interesting comment that has popped up a couple times over the past couple of weeks from players, and even D'Amico Ryans has said it. No one's coming to save us. Like,
they know they're in Barney.
So you do need a little bit of saving, and that's where it's been. I feel like the Nico Collins situation, him being active, not playing, that was frustrating to me because if he was anywhere close to being able to step on the football field, the team had a 2-hour meeting earlier in the week, players only, where they clearly were not happy with what was going on and how they were playing. Why not try to equip them with a weapon that would have helped if he is indeed ready to play?
I think, with Nico coming back, I do think things can get a little bit better because CJ's like 2 totally different quarterbacks with Nico and without Nico. So I think once he's back, it'll mitigate some of the issues. It won't mitigate everything, but I think it'll make them look more like a team that can, I don't know, possibly win a playoff game versus a team that looks like they'll be one and done.
I mean, look, we've seen what, 6 quarters of Nico Collins and Joe Mixon together. If you get those 2 guys on the field, you should be able to get enough going on offense. And then this defense is, the defense has got their back's got to hurt a little bit here.
We're out of time, so the defense gets shafted once again. They do all the hard lifting, and they get no credit because no one else can do their part. But the defense is legit.
Yeah.
What they did against the Packers without 5 starters, I think, was the first moment I was like, legitimate scheme, legitimate coaching, and defense, because that was awesome. And then they did it against the Lions as well, and then it all fell apart because the game's just too long for them to do it consistently for 4 quarters.
Yep.
All right, that's it. Let's kick in with Kunkel. We're going to do this when Playoff time?
Yeah, when they're opening
in the
wild card
playoffs?
weekend with the first Saturday playoff game, like they usually do.
We'll run this back. All right. Check out DJ on ESPN.com and HoustonFootball.com, right?
Yeah, HOU football.
HOUFootball.com.
HOUfootball.com.
All right, boys. Thanks.